No bagels today. It's kind of depressing. I was like, should I get bagels again? And then I thought I'd be broke if I did it every week. So I bailed. Maybe I'll get some next week. I don't know. You guys like donuts? Are donuts a thing? Alright. Maybe I could do some donuts some point in time. What's up, guys?
Everybody good?
It's quiet in here. It's
Yeah,
weird.
it's like a dark.
It's because there's no bagels.
Ah,
Yeah. It's the secret. Bring food. Be more lively. We're missing some folks too.
how was your night?
How was my night?
Yeah,
Dude, I was done by 10:30. I was.
same. It was a rough one. Just sleep through it. I've been sleeping a little.
Ooh. That, it goes through. I'll go through cycles. Like November, December, I wasn't sleeping well at all, and I'm good. But as long as it doesn't last too long, you know, you can't sleep for like a year. It's probably you should go see somebody.
I just wake up like 3 times a night. And
Hey,
then
Chris.
I wake up at like 3:30 and then I'm just up. So I go to class.
Ooh.
But I go to bed at like 8.
Well, you know, you're getting your sleep then.
Something like that.
All right, guys. Let's get started. You know, just for those of you that have your laptops open, because I film the class, I know what you're doing on your laptops. Just a little heads up. So make sure what you're doing is class related. Otherwise, I'm like, oh, guess what's going on there? Hey guys, come on in. I thought we'd spend a little time this morning. I want to talk about the career fair. So, what'd you think? Everybody went, right? I'm hopeful everybody went. It was fairly important that you go. What'd you think of career fair?
I didn't know it was going to take that much time, to be honest with you.
Really? How much time did you end up spending
Well,
there?
I had an exam in the morning,
Okay.
so I didn't get there until like the last hour, and I realized that that was not enough time at all.
Yeah, because there were so many.
Yeah.
I honestly, I had no idea how much time it would take either. It was my first time for that career fair. I've
Yeah.
done other career fairs. That one's a little bit more intimate, is a word I would use for it.
Yeah.
Like people were sitting and talking for so long with the recruiters, and then the lines would just accumulate, and then you'd just be sitting there and not knowing what to do because there are other tables that don't have lines. But then the line that you're in, if you get out of it to go to the other tables, then you're screwed.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a different setup. Like I've gone to different events, like networking events, that, like where I'm not efficient.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to explain how. Like we didn't sit down. I think that.
Oh, the other networking events
Like
you
a
didn't sit
lot
down.
of like the events I've been to, like they don't. They're just standing there at the table.
Yeah.
So it's like you kind of feel like a sense of like I can't just sit here and talk forever. Well, like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, which
yeah.
I mean, like if you're creative, like you need that time to like show your portfolio, but then.
So this is a bit of a Brad.
Like I've been to like the business one, and there's also like 100
Oh,
companies.
yeah, it's
but, like
way
some
bigger.
days, sometimes like they'll get like a group of like 6 people or 7 people and explain to them. But like you couldn't really do that with this one. I mean, that's a good or bad thing. It's just different.
You talk
So you
like
s-
in a group, like
Yeah, it'll be like
when they're
8.
standing there, they can talk about like give their spiel to like,
A group of
Five of
people.
us.
Yeah.
and then like that individual person can like.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like also a good thing because like they're specifically hiring like Mizzou Stratcom kids. That's why it's like it was different, but I thought it was good.
So it definitely has pluses and minuses. So one of the pluses is the intimacy, right? If you got to talk to somebody, you literally got to see. It's almost like you got an interview.
And they probably remembered you.
Yeah, and they probably remembered you, maybe, hopefully, if you were memorable. But how many of you didn't get to talk to somebody you wanted to talk to? You, Eric, and anybody else have like wait in line for forever and had to bail and go see somebody else instead? You didn't?
I did last year. Like going into it like looking for a job, like going into it looking for an internship, you're kind of like open to like all the cities, like doing whatever. And then when like you're looking for a job, you're pretty like, okay, I'm going to these 4 because that's the city I want, you know?
Right, yeah,
Or like I
location
know
matters.
that they'll have like the position that I want.
Hmm.
So like it was a little more narrowed, but
Yeah.
like yeah, I could see if you're looking for an internship, it could be stressful because you're like, I could talk to all these.
Hmm. How many of you are seniors in here? Raise your hand. Who is a junior? Wow, just one junior? Is that it? Man, flying solo. So were you looking for internships when you went?
Yeah, but so yeah, I was pretty more like a lot more open to going around because I didn't really have anything like set in mind about what I was going to look for. Like I knew a lot of companies beforehand I'd heard of, and I did a little bit of research on them, so I kind of knew which ones I wanted to talk to first. But I didn't really have like a set 4 or 5 that I needed to talk to.
Hmm. So how many actually got to all 5 companies? Did you guys manage that one? Most of you? Is it hard to get to all 5? Yeah. Maybe was 5 too many for that? So okay, all right. So again, I wasn't ready for that atmosphere. I'm like, wow, everybody's sitting down having like face-to-face interviews. So if you didn't get to all 5, I understand. I'll take that in consideration because it was not what I had anticipated. All the career fairs, I've been going to career fairs for 10, 12 years, and they're always like stand-up type of career fair.
Yeah.
Who had experienced this career fair before? Did anybody go last year? You did? What's your name again? Erica. All right. I need to learn names, so I'm trying to figure that out.
It was the same last year.
Was the same last year? Yeah.
I think it's different from, because I've gone to the business one, I think it's different too, because these are all, except for like 2 or 3 places, they're all specifically agencies.
Yeah.
Like, so you have to be like really set on working at an agency if you go there. It's
Mhm.
like, pretty much that's all that there is.
Right.
So if you want to do like marketing for a company, like you have to go to the business one.
So these aren't companies hiring internal marketers. These are more agencies that work for companies.
Yes, yeah, like almost all of
There
them.
was
I'd
one
say.
nonprofit last year that I got interested in.
Oh, really? What nonprofit? Gateway, was it? Okay. Is that based out of St. Louis?
Yeah, it's like foundation coverage.
Okay.
Because they were like literally the only one, and then the rest of the agencies, so I only knew that one, I talked to that one last year. But
So you were prepped going into it.
yeah, but this year it was like mostly agencies and like a lot of ad and marketing agencies, if you wanted.
Mhm.
So I got an NPR, and there's only like, there's like Fleischman and then like others.
Do any of you have a job lined up already after school? Chris, you do? Kramen does? That's good. Where are you going to be working?
It's a bum out in LA.
What's that?
A bum, like a dishwasher in LA.
You're going to be a bum in LA. That's a good place to be a bum.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to be a bum, LA, San Francisco, San Diego,
Either there, Toronto.
probably get a little cold in Toronto.
Yeah, I've got resources.
What about you, Chris?
Jeff City, Alton.
Okay. What are you going to be doing?
Kind of like ballot initiatives.
Okay. What were some of the questions, if you talked to multiple recruiters, were there certain questions that they asked you or information that was consistent from one recruiter to the next?
Like, what do you want to do? I mean, they have to establish like what facet you're in.
Mm-hmm. Any, do you feel like there were any certain skills that they were interested in you demonstrating you had?
One asked for like leadership like skills, and then That one I felt like I was getting like first round interview, kind of, because it was like the more intimate. So like, I
Yeah.
was the only one, so he was able to talk to me for like 10 minutes.
Was that the wine guy?
Yeah, the wine guy.
Yeah.
He was cool, he was nice, but
That they are just kind of randomly there.
yeah, I even asked. I was like, if you don't mind me asking, like, why are you at the Stratcom fair? And he was like, no, like we get a lot of Stratcom kids. But that one I was like for like leadership and like what makes you stand out, like a first round interview kind of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were there talking to that guy for a while.
Yeah.
Do any of you feel like that going to the career fair is going to set you up for, you know, the next time you have to interview with somebody, or was it beneficial, I guess, is what I'm asking. Oh, yeah.
Gets like your jitters out.
Got your jitters out? So I interviewed recruiters at the end of the day. So as people were bailing, I went around with my camera and I'm like, hey, I teach this particular class. Can you give me some insight into what you are looking for from students? And a couple of my takeaways were the importance of researching the company that you're talking to. They said, I don't know how many students come up to our booth, whatever, and they're like, expect us to tell them about the company and what we have available. And they don't like doing that. I mean, it was kind of like, yeah, we don't like that. We want students to come prepared, to know, hey, I've researched your company, I know what jobs you have available, because that gives them the opportunity to tell you about their company and who they are and what's possible there, versus having to start from ground one. Like, okay, here's the jobs we have available. Here is the big picture company stuff, instead of getting into the finer details of certain positions. Another takeaway I got was how important communication is. I mean, you guys are Stratcom majors, so I would assume that you realize communication is important. But all three interviews I did, hey, good morning. All three interviews I did emphasized communication, like, which I thought was interesting to me because these are strategic communications majors. But one of the recruiters was talking about not just all forms of communication. So whether you are communicating with an internal team, whether you're communicating with a client, whether you're communicating with your manager, being able to effectively communicate. One person I was talking to was even talking about when you have different clients with an agency, being able to communicate with different people differently. So if you have one group of people that's really buttoned up, stuffy, so to speak, being able to take on that persona to some degree to communicate with that group, versus a group that's really relaxed, laid back, shorts, t-shirt kind of group, being able to change depending upon the group you're working with. That was a couple of takeaways. So, thumbs up, career fair. Overall was good. I'll keep that one in the class for next year. So you guys are, as I said, you're my guinea pigs to some degree. So I am learning a little bit. So I'm willing to make adjustments to accommodate, grades and stuff as the course progresses. Finding out that 5 might have been a few too many to try to nail down. I understand that now. I want to change some assignments a little bit. So originally, today I was going to have the career fair reflection due. I changed that. Did you get that announcement? So that's not due today. It's going to be due next week. That makes sense to me. I was going to make the resume due next week as well. I'm changing that. I don't want the final resume because I want a chance to actually look at everybody's resume and go through them and tweak them a little bit, or give you suggestions on how you could tweak them. And we're going to be talking about design in next week or the week after that. So I want that to be part of what you're thinking about when you're building your resume. How many have been through some kind of design class at MU? Isn't it like a requirement in Stratcom? There's a design class. What's that class like, and when do you take it?
So junior year.
First semester, junior year.
Was that right? And then it
Is this strat writing and design?
yeah,
What's it called?
strat writing and design.
Strat writing and design. And how much time do you guys just spend on like design, like basic principles of design?
Half.
Half.
We
Another
call it
half.
lab, yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Wouldn't
not
it
a lot
alternate
of, like,
days?
It's very basic. It's like,
Yeah. Wasn't it like lecture alternated days?
Yes.
Lab was, lecture alternated like copy then design.
That was the
either-
class with two.
It was either Mark or
Yeah.
Frank, and then
Oh, yeah.
the lab was always designing with the TA, right?
Yeah.
Was that the campaign one where
Yeah,
we
we
each got
did
it
Chevy
separate?
Bowl, or well, at least the semester I did.
Yeah, and then it was, yeah, that was that one. The blue apron. And then there was four before that.
No, we had,
Yeah.
Chevy Bolt.
Chevy.
Chevy was before that. Yeah.
So do you guys look at do you look at design principles? Do you talk about what makes good design?
Yeah.
So you did a little bit of that, and did you kind of break it down like, oh, here's an example of good, here's an example of bad, and
Like if we showed our stuff in class, like, I don't know about your guys' lab instructors, but ours would just tell us like, okay, that's pretty ugly, like that
Right.
looks bad,
right, yeah,
so.
and hopefully tell you why it looks bad.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
of course you did.
That looks
You didn't
bad.
Just like
Just
tell us it
done.
was bad and then
Right.
move on. But
Yeah. Okay. That's good to know. So I think I'm going to lecture once on design since you've already had that class. Kind of a bit of a refresher, and I'm going to keep it super simple. There's a book. Highly recommend this book. So if you want to write something down, it's a quick read. It's called The Non-Designer's Design Book. It's by Robin Williams, not the comedian Robin Williams. Could have been a really funny book, but the book is like mega simple. I like it when I can find a material that breaks complicated processes down to very simple components, because then it's easy for me to replicate and repeat. Instead of getting into all the design theory about it, forget about design theory, just tell me the practical aspects of it. And so the Non-Designer's Design Book by Robin Williams is only like, $10, $15 on Amazon. It's totally worth a purchase and just skimming it. I mean, literally, it could take you 30 minutes and get the gist of the book. It's totally worth it. After we talk about design, one of the things I also want to talk about is story. And I think you guys have a class that's about story, don't you?
I don't know.
Like telling stories?
Yeah, Flank's class.
Who?
Jim Flake.
Branded storytelling?
Branded story, branded strategic storytelling.
Wait, what's it called?
Branded strategic storytelling?
Branded? It's not a requirement.
Yeah, that's not.
You haven't taken, okay, it's elective.
I'm gonna write
Okay. Will be a little overlap for you. I'm probably going to spend 1 or 2 lectures just talking about the importance of story. I'm giving feedback on everybody's work, like the elevator pitch and the online introduction. You probably hear me talk about story a lot. I'm like, tell your story, figure out who you are. You want to convey your story to people. It's super important. So because of the lectures and the conversation I want to have a little bit further on, I'm moving when it's certain assignments. So the resume, I think I'm going to make the resume due at the end of the semester, at the same time we do the final project. So the ultimate goal of this class is your final, you're going to stand up in front of the class and you're going to do, it'll be kind of an interview style where I'll ask you a couple questions and you'll have to respond to those questions in front of the whole class. Everyone is going to evaluate each other. So your peers are going to be evaluating you and I'm going to be evaluating you. Okay, so you're going to do like an elevator pitch, ask you, hey, tell me a little bit about who you are. So you're going to have to answer that. And then you're going to showcase some, we'll talk about projects a little bit later on, but a project is a way for you to look at your life experiences, whatever, that could be club, that could be capstone, that could be work in school, outside of school, but to look at those experiences and talk about the skills you developed in that experience. So a project could be about communication. I'm a great communicator. Well, what made you a great communicator? What experiences have you had that have developed your communication skills? What, during those experiences, how did you become a better communicator? So talking about that. One of the recruiters I was speaking with yesterday, said that like everybody's done the bird project. Anybody who in here has worked on the bird scooter stuff here in town? You have? So the bird, I guess bird is pretty popular. And they're like, man, every student has worked on, every person that's talked to us has worked on bird. And we want to hear something different. What makes a student stand out? If they would have shared with us they worked on bird, but then talked about kind of what specifically they did that was different, their experience with bird, what skills they developed, that would have been way better than just saying, hey, I interned or worked on this particular bird, did this little research project on bird. So that's what I want to prepare you guys to be able to do, is be able to share your story about who you are, what makes you different, what sets you apart from everybody else, and then talk about certain experiences. So one I know is going to be about communication, thinking about one being about problem solving, and then talking to you guys about picking one on your own. So inside of, oh, my computer went to sleep. Inside of that, I think it's the online introduction assignment. Maybe I can post this in a different spot that'd be better. There's a PDF called Essential Skills. How many of you have not looked at that PDF called Essential Skills? It's okay if you haven't, I just need to know who hasn't. You haven't? Okay, so a number of people have not looked at that. Let me show you where it is. Go this way? There we go. Okay, so in online introduction, there's a resource here called Essential Skills. I want everybody to look at this sucker, okay? Super important. Online introduction, Essential Skills. So a large company spent millions of dollars talking to employers around the world, trying to figure out what skills are you most interested in your employees having. And they came up with this massive list, and then they, through research, broke that down into about 7 different categories. So you have critical thinking. Where's my mouse? There we go. Nope. Critical thinking, communication, oral and written, teamwork, leadership, self-management, ethics, mindset, and then you can skip that bottom one, career transition skills. You can apply that later on when you want to transition to a different career. But each one of these is then broken down into subgroups. And because we know employers are interested in these skills, what I want to help you guys be able to do by the end of the class when we're standing up and giving your presentations is, hey, be able to say, I'm Jeff Lee. I had this experience and it gave me an opportunity to really focus on my decision-making abilities. And during that experience, I did X, Y, and Z, and this is why I developed my decision-making skills, and this is why I'm a better decision maker now than I was before. Or maybe I'm talking about my written communication skills, and I've had a lot of opportunities to write, but I have refined my writing over time. If I'm an employer, I don't want just to hear that you write well. I want to know how you developed your writing skills. Or if I'm an employer, I don't want just to hear that, yeah, I'm a really great presenter. Well, talk to me about experiences you've had presenting and how that's really changed you and made you better. So we're going to do 3 different projects at the end of the class, along with kind of the elevator pitch at the end. And as I said, one of them I know I want to be about communication. Because you guys are strat comm majors, I think that makes sense. Thinking one about problem solving, or maybe I'll just let you pick the other 2. And you're going to present those in front of the class. You're going to get up and say, hey, I'm Kramen, blah, 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 blah. This is what makes me tick. This is why I am who I am. And let me talk to you about my ability to be a great communicator. Or let me talk to you about my ability to be an active listener. Whatever that essential skill is that you want to highlight. And the reason for this is when you are in a position where you're actually interviewing for a company and they ask you an experiential based question where they say, hey, tell me about a time when. That's the cue for this is an experiential based question. You have to have thought about your experiences in advance to be ready to share the information about your experiences. If you haven't thought about them in advance, you're not going to be able to do it. You might be able to, okay, I'm thinking it might come up with some okay ones on the spot, but if you've really given them consideration, then you'll be able to share those a lot better. So the end of class, the final is you're standing up, basically giving your elevator pitch or some variation of that. You're going to be presenting 3 projects. Everybody in here is going to have a rubric, be evaluating each other, and I'll be evaluating you. And I think in addition to that, we're also going to have your resume at that point in time. So I think instead of delivering your resume before that, we'll get your resume at that point in time too. And your Folio Tech online intro. That'll all be one package at the end of class. So what'll happen is something like this. Let me go to mine. Whoops. Okay, so you're going to come up. Wow, that's big. You're going to come up and you're going to have your online brand up here, so your Folio Tech identity page. And it's going to have your online intro in here where we're not going to read it, but you'll just bring it up on the screen. And you'll give I'll ask you a question. I'll probably have a few questions that I've set up to prompt you for response. You'll give your little spiel, and then you're going to come in and you're going to have projects inside of this space that talk about certain skills. So you'll have a project that talks about communication. You're gonna have a project that, as I said, maybe it's problem solving, maybe it's something else. Look at that essential skills list, and we'll come up with what that project is gonna be. So this is a project I put together on visual design. And you may or may not walk through the whole entire project during your time, which is totally fine. I just want it as part of your identity page so I can look at it and give you feedback on it and grade you on it. The more important part is that you have gone through the process of thinking about communication and putting together a project, because the process of building it is probably 80% of the work. 20% is what gets built in the end that you can showcase, but what's important is the 80% putting in the work ahead of time to think through these experiences you have. This is kind of a good class for me, an opportunity just to pause a minute. And I didn't have a little bit of a lecture plan. We're going to talk about first impressions, but I wanted to bring you guys up to speed on what the whole objective of the class is, so you're not like flying blind. I kind of feel like there's a little flying blind going on. Part of that is due to the fact that we missed a class, which was a bummer, but maybe not a bummer for you guys because you got the day off. I didn't get the day off. I had to work. All right. So I'm going to stop. What questions do you guys have for me about this whole process? Yeah.
So what's due next week?
What's due next week? All right. Your reflection is due next week. And the reflection on the career fair. Okay? Just that.
Just reflect on the career.
So there are questions inside of Folio Tech that I want you to respond to.
I've been checking Canvas.
Yeah, don't check Canvas for assignments. I think I might change that in the future. For now, though, you're gonna go. Where's my mouse? You go here, and there's this little one here called Career Fair, and in it are questions to kind of get you started on prompting. And if you took any pictures of the career fair or anything to convince me that you actually met with 5 different schools, I'd like to know the schools that you met with. Because I really wanted you guys to hit 5. If you didn't hit 5, just tell me all the schools you met with, so I'm aware. Not schools, the companies you met with. And remember this: after you fill this out, you have to hit submit. Not only do you have to hit submit, you have to pick our class. Okay, so you pick the class and you hit done. So 3 things: submit, class, done, and then I can see it. For some of you, you didn't do that, and I went in and retroactively submitted your work for you because I saw that you'd actually done it and you were waiting for me to do something with it. So hit the submit button, pick the class, and hit done. So you hit submit, you pick our class. You should only have 1 option, maybe 2. I think you should only have 1 option though, and hit done. And it'll want you to confirm. So that's what's due next week's Career Fair Reflection. That is it. I'm going to take a look at all the resumes you guys have given me already and start to work through those and provide you feedback on your resumes. Yeah, Chris.
Can we like resubmit draft 2?
Yeah, so
Is there a way to do that in there?
you can submit as many times as you want. Every time you hit that submit button, it'll submit again.
Because I changed it again.
Do it. Yeah. And I'll see the different versions too. Each submission you do shows me a different, your latest, I should say. And so your resumes, I want to have time to go through those. Your elevator pitch, the final is also due next week. I'm going to change the elevator pitch final. I'll let you know when I'm going to make that due. So that won't be due next week either. I'm not going to make the online introduction due next week. So next week, the only thing that's due is the Career Fair Reflection. Everything else, I'm going to change those assignment deadlines on. Okay, what other questions do you guys have about where we're headed? Yeah.
The reflection, it said like 250. Is that just like a minimum?
It's just at least give me 250.
Okay.
250 words. So I just do want somebody to go in there and type like 1 sentence.
Yeah.
Career Fair was great. Done. All right, what other questions do you guys have? This is it. This is your chance. If you don't ask me now, you never know the answer. Are you freaked out? Yeah.
How do you suggest like going about looking for jobs when it's kind of more of like a broad scope? Because I find myself typing in a bunch of different things into like Indeed, and not even narrowing it by like geographic location or anything, just because I don't care where I end up. But like I don't know what terms to even put in there that will be the most concise for like a job that I would be best at. I have like keywords, but it
Right.
seems like the results are always different, or you need like 5 to 7 years of experience, even if it says like assistant or associate.
It's so
Which I
hard.
don't
Like, how do you
understand.
jump from no
Yeah.
experience to a job where they're like, I want 5 years experience?
I don't get it.
Yeah. I will argue that just because this says 5 years experience shouldn't prevent you from applying for it, for one, you know. Because you can tweak things to show you have experience doing things. Let's talk about that a little bit more after class, or maybe we could meet up and I could walk you through some things we could do in Indeed or some other places to research.
Okay.
Yeah. Thought I saw another hand up. So just seeing things. All right, anybody like super flipped out about having to present at the end of the class on, it's no big deal, you guys are like, old hat, awesome. All right, so let's talk about today's topic, which is first impressions. Personal brand, did you guys, what do you remember about personal brand before I get into first impressions? Anybody? Nothing. What is a personal brand?
It's kind of like what people like think of you as, like when they hear your name or they see you, they're like, oh, that person does this, they're known
Yeah.
for that.
Uh-huh. Right.
Hopefully it's like a good thing.
Oh yeah, hopefully it's a good thing. So is your reputation,
Mhm.
right? It's another word for it. Is there anybody in here that doesn't have a personal brand? Everybody's got a personal brand, right?
Yeah.
So what happens if you just kind of ignore your personal brand?
Doesn't go away.
It doesn't go away, yeah. You have one regardless. If you don't pay attention to it, what's going to happen?
Other people make it for you.
Other people make it for you. That's huge. You gotta understand that. If you don't take ownership of it, other people are gonna create their own opinions and form their own stuff. Now they're gonna create their own opinions regardless, but if you can shape it a little bit, you can at least guide what opinions they might have. Right? Which gets us into today's topic on first impressions. So I got this guy. What's your first impression of that guy? Would you trust this guy?
No.
Yeah, right? Gut instinct. First impression. What else about this guy? We're all judgy. Let's be judgy. Let's judge this guy.
Looks kind of douchey.
Looks kind of douchey. All right. That's awesome.
He looks like sketchy, like trying to hide something.
Trying to hide, yep.
Handsome.
Yeah, totally. So he's a scary guy. All right. Got another guy here. What about that guy? What do you think of that guy? Kramer, you're laughing. Why are you laughing?
These stock images are just, I'm a big fan of stock images.
Yeah.
He's like your friends.
Yeah.
They're just like,
What's that?
so are these your friends?
So what do you think of this guy? Hold on. What do you think of this guy?
See you having
This guy's creeping you out? Okay. So your opinion of this guy's creeping you out. What about you guys? Anybody else? Looks like a little boy. All right. Cool. You think he looks normal? All right. Your first impression, normal dude. It's creepy. Looks like a little guy. So 3 totally different perspectives on one photo, right? Those are the same guy. This guy is also this guy. And he's a friend of mine. He's one of my software engineers. So I can't wait to tell him that he looks a little douchey. Like, are you kidding me? I mean, I did take these photos a long time ago. But, you know, when we see a picture or we see an image, the science behind it shows that within 100 milliseconds, that's like 1/10 of a second, we're forming an opinion on that person. And one of the top things we form is like trust. Like when I see it, am I going to trust this person? Kind of like probably a lizard brain sort of situation where we've been coded to, as soon as we see somebody, we're going to make a snap reaction of whether or not we're going to trust them. Now you can overcome that, obviously, by conversations and getting to know that person differently, but we make snap judgments about people, first impressions. These are all types of biases. Another one is first impressions when it comes to design. So there's a research study that's been done multiple times now where they bring in average, normal Joes off the street and they flash web pages in front of these folks, like for a split second, 50 milliseconds to be exact. And they get their opinion on whether or not they like the design of that website based off that really short interval of time they saw that. And then they have a control group where they also get their opinion when they see it longer. And they found that people form the same opinions whether they are exposed to the design longer or just for 50 milliseconds. So when you're doing design work and you're trying to make something look good, you have 50 milliseconds to make an impression on somebody when it comes to the design work you do. So visual appeal totally matters. Let's say you go to a nice restaurant, you want to have a good meal, right? And that gets put in front of you. I mean, I don't know. What if that gets put in front of you? Right? I mean, I guess if I'm super hungry, maybe I'm interested in that. But which looks, to your eyes, which is more appealing? One or two? Two, right? I mean, really, let's look at that together. So we eat with our eyes first. Have you heard that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to consume with your eyes first. And that's across the board. That doesn't have to deal with food. That can deal with anything. So your personal brand, images you're presenting, or even your resume. Which one do you want to eat? Right? Which one do you want to consume? Which one looks more appetizing?
On the right.
Yeah, the one on the right? I mean, when you look at this, are you kidding me? Who wants to read all that? If I got this resume, I'd be like, I don't have the time for that. I would file 13.
I have a related question, I guess, to the resume, but I got a lot of resume critiques yesterday at the career fair, and they said don't put your address because that's creepy.
Oh yeah.
But it's on everybody's resume. Did you not?
So there's so many differing opinions on resume out there, and it changes from industry to industry. Like you were talking to these mostly agencies yesterday, they're going to have different opinion than actual firms that are. Everybody has a different opinion on a resume. So you do have to know a little bit about who you're applying to know how to structure your resume. But there's some basics, like basics in design, basic like concepts that we can apply everywhere. And I think they're right. There's no reason to have your address on your resume because it's a little creepy, right? It's like, hey, I know where you live now. So we'll be some other things about resume. I've reviewed some of your resumes. You know, we've probably heard this before. Make sure you have professional emails and that sort of thing. But for these two resumes, just visually speaking, not even looking at the content, you want to read this one, don't you? It's like, yeah, I'd much rather look at this one than try to decipher this one. How about these two? Now, come on. It's the one on the right again, right? It's the one on the right. Yeah, maybe this still looks more interesting. Maybe I won't throw this one in the trash. I'll at least keep it in the pile because I can read it. But I'll probably read this one first. But here's what this means. So we talked about how the visual matters. So when I look at something, I'm going to decide whether I like it right away. Like, oh, I like this, or I don't like this. And because of that, I have a psychological bias. How many of you have taken a psych class? Yeah, you probably don't remember anything of that psych class. All I remember about my psych class in college was I really liked it. But I don't remember anything I learned in it. But I have learned some things since then. And one of those things is all about cognitive bias. Do you remember talking about cognitive bias? It's just like so many different biases out there. A cognitive bias, it's a mistake. That's important to realize. Cognitive bias is a mistake in a cognitive process that changes your own personal preferences. And we see this happening in society all the time. People, as I said, people are judgy, and we make snap judgments on folks without really knowing what's going on. Those are our own cognitive biases. If you go Wikipedia, which is just the greatest resource ever. If you guys use Wikipedia, make sure you check all your sources. But there's like over 100 different types of cognitive biases that are out there. But I think there are certain ones that are important that we should be aware of, and the biggest is a confirmation bias. Who's heard confirmation bias before? Yeah. So here's the definition: the tendency To search for, interpret, favor, and recall information in a way that confirms one's pre-existing beliefs. So here's what happens. I get your resume. I think it's ugly. I just don't like it. Okay? So what happens when I meet you for the first time? I'm going to think, I don't like this person's resume, was ugly. So I'm going to start to ask you questions to confirm my own bias. Resume's ugly. I just don't think you know what you're talking about. So I already have formed an opinion about you, even maybe I shouldn't have formed that opinion about you, but I've done it. All based on what I thought your resume looked like. Same's true. Like if you come into the interview and you don't dress well, or maybe your shirt's wrinkly, and I'm like, shirt wrinkly. Obviously, you didn't care about that. Probably doesn't care that much about the interview. So I am forming these biases. And it's going to change that whole interview interaction. I'm not telling you this is a good thing. I just want you to be aware of it, right? Because that can set you up for success if you realize, hey, people are going to form biases about me. That's okay. It's how we're all wired. But what can I do to help control those biases? Your personal brand. What can I do to help control my personal brand so that people are forming the opinions I want them to form rather than the opinions that they're just going to form on their own? Here's a couple other biases. Selective perception, the tendency for expectations to affect your perception. So I expect, based on the way your resume looked, for you to perform a certain way. And so I'm going to look for ways to confirm that bias. How about this one? The good-looking people bias. I was reading an article about politicians and how more politicians, people think they're attractive. And so we have a lot of attractive people in politics, so we think they're smarter. I don't know if that applies to our president. I especially like this bias. I just threw this in there because I think it's funny. The IKEA effect. If you put something together with your hands, you think it's better than if you didn't, even though it's still not very good at all. I love that. Oh, man. Finally, a self-fulfilling prophecy. So this is not so much a bias, but this is something that I want you to think about when you are searching for jobs and when you're being interviewed for jobs. And this goes to you, Erica, what you were saying. Yeah, goes to you. You were saying, like, searching for jobs. People want 5 years experience. Self-fulfilling prophecy says, if you go into a situation thinking the outcome is going to be X, then you automatically start to respond in a way to make outcome X happen. Whereas if you say, so let's say I'm interviewing for a job. I know they need 5 years experience. I don't have 5 years experience. So I go into that job thinking, I'm not going to get hired. I don't have 5 years experience. There's no way they're gonna want me. Instead of going into that interview saying, hey, I've got a really good shot at this job. You have to change what you believe about yourself so that the outcome is what you want the outcome to be. Kind of sounds a little weird. You have to have confidence. Right? That was another thing the recruiters told me yesterday, was the number of times they are talking to students and the students are super nervous and they just ramble on without any substance. Like, just calm down, take control, and have confidence. Self-fulfilling prophecy falls into that. If you think you're going to be successful, there's a greater chance of you being successful than if you think you're going to fail. All right, a couple of final things here. When it comes to making good first impressions, there was some research that was done on, I think it was like 3,000 different recruiters that were interviewed and asked, what are some of the things you make judgment calls on? 96% of those recruiters, timeliness means everything to them. So if somebody comes in late for an interview, they don't care. Confirmation bias is saying, I don't I don't really, you came in late, you must not care about me, so I'm not going to care about you, so I'm not going to ask you questions that are going to give you the good time of day. Interview preparation. We heard this one, I shared it earlier in class. Are you doing the research on the company before you go in for the interview or before you go into that career fair? 93% really care about that. 82% eye contact, right? Or I'm coming to interview, I'm like, hey, you know, how you doing? Name such and such, and you don't make eye contact. It's really awkward and weird. It's really important. You make eye contact. Personal appearance, 73%, weigh that heavily. And finally, that 60%, that initial handshake, small talk conversation that happens, plays an important role in the hiring process. So that's it for today. Remember, next week those career fair reflections are due. I'm going to have office hours today. I don't have an office. So I will be at Lakota from 3 to 5. So if anybody wants to swing by, has any questions, get a cup of joe, hang out. Love to just hang out and chew the fat. Totally willing to do that. So 3 to 5 today at Lakota. Cool. That's it, guys. Thanks. Thanks for coming again. I'm glad you guys keep coming to class. It would really suck if I came and nobody was here.